Hello and happy Wednesday. Jumping on here to talk about my favorite thing, feet. So today talking about when it comes to our feet, are we more proactive or are we reactive when it comes to our foot? So reactive to me is more when we start symptom managing because we have a pain in our foot, or maybe we're noticing that maybe we're having an issue with balance, but most of the time it's when we have a pain in our foot, then we react to that, right? And then you start managing a lot of times the symptom, which is the pain, whereas if we're proactive, then we're working our feet pretty consistently, just like we would work out the rest of our bodies. And why would we want to work our feet as much as the rest of our bodies, other than the fact that they're the thing that holds us up, right? And they're the thing that carries us across the ground. So how some ways that we could be proactive when it comes to our feet, so that we don't have to react to it, right? So that can be one, you'll hear me say this a lot, is looking at our footwear, because our footwear can cause a lot of constrictions in our feet. And so think about it, it's like if we our feet are meant to be very mobile, very flexible, but yet also strong. So if we constantly have them in a shoe that's very rigid, that doesn't have any bend and flex, and that's constantly supporting it, how does the foot get strong because it's constantly being supported? How does it become flexible and mobile because it's being constricted? So that's one way to kind of look at it. So yes, we have to wear shoes, but being mindful about the shoes that we choose, and getting out of them as much as we can so our feet can be mobile, because we can't expect to strengthen them or mobilize them if we're always desensitizing them. And that's what shoes can do, is they can desensitize our feet to where we don't feel, and feeling is a very, which I did not put that in my list, but our ability to be allow the proprioceptors in our feet to do their job, because each of our feet have 7,000 proprioceptors, and that's what tells our body where we are in space and time. So if we have a rigid, hard shoe on our foot, how is it supposed to be able to orientate us and give us knowledge from the ground when we're stepping on it? So shoes would be one of my proactive steps. And I talk about the feet because I dealt with my feet and I abused the heck out of my feet early on in life, and so now I have to work on them a lot now. And not only do I have to work on them for them, but I have to work on them for the rest of my body, because when we have rigidity and weakness in our feet, it travels up the body. So you guys might have heard me talk about this before, but the feet are, they can be very much like a Jenga set, if you know what a Jenga is. If we think about the fact that our feet have like 26 bones in each foot, if one of those is just a fraction out of whack because we've constricted it, or we've done something that's changed it, then it sets everything off up the chain. So it can set off our ankle. It can create weakness in the ankle to where we might trip or strain our ankle easier. It can set off the knee to where we might start having knee pains. Then that travels on up and hits our hip. We have hip issues, and that travels on up, and we have spine, back issues, and it can travel on up. So some of the other issues that we're having in our body could actually be stemming from our feet also. So other ways that we can work on those is release techniques that helps remove some of that rigidity and helps us get that space back into our feet, and going into specific points depending upon what's going on with our feet, which also when we're doing that, that helps us get that proprioception back to where we can start feeling how our feet is. That's not rolling our feet on something really hard or rolling our feet on something really cold, because we're wanting our feet to be mobile. So think about it, when we freeze water, it becomes ice, and then we're using that ice to cool our foot, and then we're trying to ask it to mobilize. So I don't know any ice that actually mobilizes. So if we're doing the same thing to our tissue and then we're asking it to move or relax, it's not really going to do that. And there's now new studies that are coming out that ice actually can slow the healing process down. So we might think that it's removing that inflammation, but what they're really saying now is about the only time that ice would be used is if you're wanting to, stop pain. So if we ice a lot, then we're actually slowing down that that healing process. And then if we go in there with something really hard, because I'll hear people say something about using golf balls or lacrosse balls or things like that. I always say it's kind of like we're poking the bear. If we go in and we like really jab into something, it's going to make the tissue more angry because then it's going to tense up. So using something a little softer to, if you're going to be rolling the foot, but there's other ways that we can release the foot. So that's one. Stretching. So using stretching techniques that also start to create more mobility and movement in our foot. And our alignment is very important. So, if you're turned out versus going straight ahead, that's putting pressure in different areas of the foot. If we're wearing footwear that lifts our heels up, that's putting pressure into other parts of the foot that they're not meant to be. And if we're, heavier on certain areas than others, that sends our feet out of alignment. And then if we think back to the Jenga set again, if our feet are out of alignment and they're not moving the way they're supposed to, then it's going to set everything off up the chain. And then strengthening. So strengthening our feet, always kind of think about it is that our feet should be as flexible as they are strong. So if we're thinking of like a trampoline is very flexible, but yet it's strong, so we don't go through it. And so our feet should be as rebounding as a trampoline, so that they're able to, flex and move us, propel us through our day. So creating that strength. And the really cool thing is when we start building that strength in our feet, we can start strengthening and engaging our structural strength. So that's what I'll call, we call it, a lot of people call it core, and I feel like core sometimes we just associate with a certain area of the body. So I'll say structural strength because we want our whole structure to be strong. And there's structural muscles that's deep inside our body that holds our body upright and propels us through, versus the bigger global muscles. So our structural strength we can actually start building from our feet up. So I'll call it, if we wanted to say core, you could say building the core from the floor up instead of just thinking of it from our bellies. And then if we think about it that way and we start building that strength from the floor up, we're also increasing our balance, which I know a lot of people I work with, that's one of their biggest concerns is balance and fall prevention. As we age or mature, I like to say, as we mature, we start to sometimes get a little concerned with falling. And so if we start working on our feet and creating that mobility and that strength and that flexibility in the feet, then building the strength from the floor up, then we start building our balance better. So that would be a whole nother talk to talk about, where does our balance come from? So we'll talk about that another day. So that's just a little bit about how we can be more proactive with our feet versus reactive with our feet. So before they start hurting, are there things that we can be doing as preventative measures or maintenance? I always like to say, so we could also say, how do we maintain our feet versus having to repair our feet is another way we could look at it. So just a little bit on feet again. I love working with feet. And so with that in mind, I do have a new foot course that's coming out. This one's actually a little longer than the last one. So what I found, so my foot courses keep getting a little more expanded. I used to do them a 1-day thing. So it's like a fire hose approach. Like it's like trying to blow all this information at one time. We also work individually, private, in studio with individuals. And then I created a 28-day course was my last one, and that was all feet. What I like about the coursework is not only are we meeting live on Zoom, which is nice for anyone who doesn't live close or maybe just don't want to travel and want to be able to work from home, or maybe you can't make it at the time because it's always recorded. Is a lot of the lives are always recorded, and 2, a lot of the things that we work on and even more is inside the course, so you can always look back on it. So it's like, okay, what was that foot exercise that we did? We can go back into the course work online and pull it up, and you always have access to that. So that's what I like about the course version, is we can get a lot more information. We can get a lot deeper into our proactive footwork in a course. And so now the new one is actually a 6-week course, because I found from working with individuals and building that we needed a little bit more time, so that not only were we just doing the work in the feet, but we were starting to build the structural strength from the floor up to help with balance, which all of us can use. We all balance throughout our day. So as little as something that you could kind of play with is balance on one foot. Just stand and balance on one foot and see how well you do that. See if you're very stable in your foot, or if you're some wobblies, or if you send your hip out or something. But see if you can really balance really good on one foot. And why is that important? Because when we walk, there's always a split second that we're balancing on each foot by itself. As that other foot's stepping forward, we're having to balance. So if we can't stand and balance well on one leg, then we're not balancing well when we're walking. So we're walking we're walking imbalanced, which then creates all kinds of wear and tear into our tissue, which over time can create hip surgeries and knee surgeries and all that kind of stuff, which we want to be, again, proactive and stay away from. So anyways, if that's something you're interested in and you want to learn more, and you're like, yeah, I really need to be proactive with my feet, so that I'm not having to do repair work, and so that as I mature, I know I'm very well balanced, so I'm not going to have falls. Then in the bottom I'll put a little link to my form for I want to be I just forgot the whole name, but I want to have functional feet, and a big emphasis on fun, because our footwork, the work that we do on our feet, can be fun. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be fun. So again, if that's something you're interested in, I'd love for you to jump in on this course with us, the 6-week one. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be very enlightening and very proactive for your whole body movement. So love to have you join us. Hope you learned something from this on your feet, and some simple tips or simple things that you can already start doing to be more proactive with your feet. Or if you have questions too about what we talked about, either send me a message or put it in the comments and we can chat about that. Have a wonderful evening, and if you're in our area, it's gorgeous out, so get out and enjoy this. It'd be a wonderful time to take a walk, which is another way that you can work your feet. So see you guys next time. Blessings. Bye bye.